Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live meeting about proposed water and sewer rate adjustments. We are here to provide information for you, and we're here to answer your questions. My name's Sue Breding. I'm with the Department of Public Affairs. So let's get this started. We are live right now on Facebook, on YouTube, Glendale 11, and the city's website. But for those of you who cannot watch right now or be here in person, we will be posting a recording of this meeting on our dedicated website page, www.glendaleaz.com/water rates. Anyone may watch this meeting, get the information, and hear the questions and answers at their convenience. We are also holding this meeting because Glendale's City Council is expected to consider adopting a notice of intention to increase water and sewer rates at its August 10th, 2021 voting meeting. If the notice of intention is approved, a public hearing and a vote on the proposed increases, that would follow on October 26th of 2021. Now, if you are watching and you have questions but you couldn't be here in person, we are monitoring our city's Facebook feed, facebook.com/GlendaleAZ, for your questions. We are also monitoring our email account, waterrates@glendaleaz.com, and we will provide answers for you live during this meeting. And if you think of questions after this meeting, no problem. Feel free to call us or email us or contact us at any time. I would now like to introduce our panel of experts and truly thank them for being here today. From Glendale's Water Services Department, we have Director Craig Johnson. We have Deputy Directors Katrina Alberti and Megan Sheldon, and our Water Services Administrator, Dan Hatch. We also have Assistant City Manager, Vicki Rios. And to start this meeting, we have a short video for you.
You already know that water is vital to life, but did you know what it takes to make sure that you get clean, safe water available to your tap 24/7? You may be surprised. Glendale water comes from several sources and is sent to Glendale's 3 water plants where it is cleaned, tested, and then sent to your house for you to use.
We have our own laboratory. It's a state-approved laboratory, so we take thousands of tests to make sure that the water that we provide our citizens is high-quality, safe drinking water.
And it takes a sophisticated infrastructure to make it all happen.
If we were to line up all our pipes, you could lay them straight in the line from here to Chicago.
And there's valves and reservoirs and pumps. There's tons of equipment that costs millions of dollars to keep the water flowing to your homes daily. When you turn on the tap, you want the water to flow out.
As that infrastructure ages, it needs to be replaced so we can keep the water flowing. That's why the city is asking the council to approve a proposal for an increase in rates.
You take an average household that uses 9,000 gallons a month. Their average bill is $2.57 a day. We presented 2 options, and they preferred and they gave consensus to move forward with option 2, which will add about 10 cents a day to the $2.57 for an average customer.
Take a look at what you get when you pay your water bill. You can fill your bathtub with city water for 11 cents, or try filling it for 11 cents with bottled water, and this is what you get. It's pretty tough to take a bath in that. And a load of laundry costs about 24 cents using city water. That's about equal to 2.5 bottles of water bought from the store. Now that won't get your clothes clean. In fact, you could fill this bottle 4,000 times using city water for $1. And compare the price of city water to other items you use, and it's not even close.
Your gas right now is up to over $3 a gallon, so a gallon of water is less than a penny. The last time I bought a gallon of milk, I think it was pushing $3.
And what you get for your money doesn't end at your house.
That value that you're paying is to deliver the water to your home and to safely collect it, take it away from your home, clean it, and store it for later use throughout the city.
So when it comes to having clean, safe, high-quality water available for your family 24/7, it's hard to find a better value, especially for something that's essential to life itself.
Okay, next we have Katrina Alberti, and we also have Dan Hatch, and they have some more information for you.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you for joining us. This afternoon, we will cover several topics that are key to the rate development process. We will provide a high-level overview of Glendale's water and sewer systems, the rate objectives, operations and maintenance expenses, as well as Glendale's water supply and infrastructure. We will also discuss the 2022 proposed rates and illustrate how Glendale's current and proposed rates, water and sewer rates, compare to nearby cities and private providers. We will also provide you information on utility assistance and information on how to conserve water. Prior to concluding today's meeting, we will provide a list of important dates and next steps, and then close out the meeting with questions and answers. The City of Glendale Water Services Department has 4 water treatment plants. The Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant that services North Glendale is supplied by Central Arizona Project. In the center portion of the city, we have our Cholla Water Treatment Plant, and Cholla is the city's oldest plant that is supplied by Salt River Project. And the final 2 plants, they're both located at our Oasis Water Campus, and both plants serve south and western portions of the city. One of those plants receives surface water supplied by SRP that is delivered via irrigation canals, and the second plant is supplied by groundwater wells. In total, we treat over 13 billion gallons of water annually. After the water is treated, it is distributed to Glendale customers through 994 miles of pipe. In addition to the pipes, we have 25,000 valves and 8,900 fire hydrants in our distribution system. The valves control the flow throughout the system, and fire hydrants provide water for fire suppression. The city also has 2 water reclamation facilities that treat raw sewage. The Arrowhead Ranch Water Reclamation Facility in the north part of Glendale, and we have our West Area Water Reclamation Facility in the southwest portion of the city. Glendale also has ownership in the regional 91st Avenue wastewater treatment plant located in the city of Phoenix. In total, both Glendale water reclamation facilities treat over 6 billion gallons of wastewater annually. Now, if you didn't know, before the sewage gets to the plants, it travels through 707 miles of pipe. In some areas of the city, we must use lift stations to pump sewage up to gravity flow pipelines to get to the plants. And in addition to the pipes, there are over 14,000 manholes and cleanouts that provide access to pipes for maintenance and cleaning to minimize sewer overflows.
As required by Arizona regulations, the cost recovery structure and rate must be just and reasonable. The city structures the rates first by a monthly service charge, then by customer class, and finally by tiered usage. Rates need to provide revenue stability and sustainability from year to year. As water consumption goes up or down from year to year, revenue will be reflective of the cost to provide that service. Financial targets are established to provide fiscal accountability. Some of the targets are required by debt covenants made with our bondholders. We want rates to encourage conservation. The less you use, the cheaper per unit the water will cost. The last objective is for the rate to recover the cost to provide services to that customer. That is done by separating customers into classes based on daily and total annual volume usage, as well as seasonal peak and non-peak usage. We have 4 water customer classes in Glendale: single family and multifamily residential, commercial, and sprinkler. For sewer, customers are separated by sewage concentration. There are 11 different sewer customer groups. If the customer is outside the city limits, they will pay an additional 30% of the bill. The first step in the rate development process is to forecast future expenses. We look at past trends as well as current economic, supply chain, and process factors. The forecast model can then make separate inflationary increase assumptions for each expense category based on the factors. The total annual cost is based on normal annual rainfall and temperatures. One expense category that is very price volatile right now is raw water purchases. Since 2017, the rates have increased over 20%. The city gets its raw water supply from 3 sources. The Salt River Project, also known as SRP, surface water supply comes from the Salt and Verde River systems. The water from the Salt and Verde Rivers originate in the springtime melt of snowpack and from monsoon rains originating in the northeastern and central Arizona mountains. This water is stored in a series of reservoirs and is delivered to the city's treatment plants via the SRP canal system. Central Arizona Project, also known as CAP, delivers water from the Colorado River through the canal north of the city. The water originates in the Rocky Mountains from snowpack. The water for Arizona is stored in Lake Powell and Lake Mead. The price volatility is dependent on the continuance of the drought and the reservoir storage level. The third water source is groundwater. The city has access to 14 groundwater wells to pull water during peak demand periods or a plant outage. The newest type of water developed by Glendale is effluent reclaimed water. Reclaimed water is water previously used that has gone through the wastewater reclamation process and is made safe to use again. Non-potable reclaimed water is being used directly on turf landscaping, community lakes, or being stored in the underground aquifer. We expect to spend over $5 million for raw water purchases in fiscal year '22. The forecast includes participation in the CAP rate stabilization program to help mitigate the drought-related increases. The additional increase due to expected Tier 1 status for 2022 is included in the plan.
In the previous slides, I discussed the city's water treatment plants and reclamation facilities, the pipes, valves, hydrants, manholes, and cleanouts, the foundation for the city's water and wastewater treatment and collection systems. To answer the question, why are infrastructure improvements needed? Just like your house, your car, ongoing maintenance, repair, and improvements are needed to keep your public utility infrastructure reliable and in good working order. In addition, the city faces inherent challenges associated with significant and costly upgrades and timely replacement of aging infrastructure. Therefore, it is critically important that Glendale continues to reinvest in this vital asset that is held in the public trust. Keeping pace with inflation and other cost increases ensures continued delivery of high quality and uninterrupted service. Because the cost of rehabilitating a facility can be in the tens of millions of dollars over 1 or 2 years, the city borrows money and then pays it back over 20 years. This levels out the capital cost of service over time.
At the June 8th workshop, Council reviewed 2 rate increase options for the next 5 years. They provided direction to proceed with the option for level annual increases. That option provides for a combined annual rate revenue increase of 3.7%. Looking at a single-family customer today, using an average of 9,000 gallons a month, they would spend about $2.57 a day for water and sewer services. If council approves the rate schedules, the customer's bill will increase approximately $2.88 a month or 10 cents a day the first year. Actual increases will vary as customers have different customer class, meter sizes, and different monthly consumption. Everyone wants to know how Glendale rates compare to other utilities. Even though we all pretty much have the same temperature and rainfall, we have major differences in the size of our population served, sources of water, customer characteristics, treatment plant ages and processes, and distribution issues. That all impacts the total bill. When you look at the single-family bill, the Glendale current and proposed bill are right in the middle.
Dan just discussed the proposed rate options that has a combined annual rate revenue increase of 3.7%. So what do you get for a day's service? There is more to providing water and sewer service than just treatment and delivery. What is the value of the precious drop of water that comes out of your tap every day? There's raw water purchases and the rights to additional capacity, treatment that includes personnel, electricity, chemicals, and maintenance, infrastructure, including the water delivery and fire protection, water quality insurance, both during treatment and delivery processes. We have state and federal compliant laboratory to ensure your water is safe. The collection of wastewater treatment and storage of reclaimed water for future use. And with that, you receive additional benefits, resiliency, 24/7 service with uninterrupted service, the redundancy. We have multiple sources of supply and treatment. There is no one source or plant that has enough water to meet the city's demands. Most importantly, you can count on the water being there when you turn on the faucet and the sewage to go away when you flush the toilet. Understanding what you get for a day's service, the City of Glendale understands that there are families who have trouble paying bills or making ends meet. And with that consideration in mind, the Community Action Program, they offer several state and federal assistance programs to help with utility billing to income-eligible households. In addition to the funding received from state and federal programs, the Water Services Department contributes $50,000 each year to the CAP office to provide additional assistance for our water customers. To find out more about utility assistance and eligibility requirements, you can contact the CAP office at 623-930-2854. And in addition to utility assistance, we have a number of water conservation resources and programs available to you. Some of the programs include rebates for customers who replace water-intensive landscape with xeriscape. We also provide water efficiency assessments for commercial customers. These assessments help identify simple and cost-effective ways to save water and money. For more information on the water conservation resources available to you, please call 623-930-3596. And as we mentioned before, there are some key dates that are coming up. On Tuesday, August 10th, the Water Services Department will present public outreach results to City Council at their afternoon workshop. Later that evening, Council will vote on the notice of intention to increase the rates and set a date for a public hearing. In addition to the workshop, there are additional requirements that are set by Arizona regulations. During the month of September, the rate schedules will be posted on the city's website. The rate schedules and cash flow projections report will be available in the city clerk's office. And the notice of intention and date of public hearing will be published in the Glendale Star newspaper. During the August 26th council voting meeting, there will be a public hearing for citizens to comment. Council will be available and we'll hear all public comments before their final discussion and vote on the rate schedule and effective dates. If approved by council, the rate schedules will become effective January 1st of 2022. And with that, I will turn it over to Sue to take questions.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Dan. Yes, now let's answer your questions, and your questions are very welcome. We are monitoring Facebook. We are monitoring our email. We've had some already come in, and we've got those. So here are some questions that have come into us during the time prior to this meeting. And we have the panel here to answer the questions. Question number 1, can you please consider discounts for people on Social Security?
So thank you for the question. So often retail businesses like restaurants and movie theaters give discounts to specific groups of people like senior citizens or students and things like that. And what those businesses are trying to do is attract a specific type of customer in the hope that while you're there shopping, you'll buy more things with your discount and generate a greater profit for the business. The city's water utility is not a for-profit business. It is simply a cost recovery business. We don't operate those kinds of programs. In addition to that, by law, we're required to make our rates just, fair, and reasonable. However, we do recognize that sometimes our customers who are on fixed or lower income need help with their bills, and we offer several programs to help these customers. Your water bill is based on your individual household or business use of water. One of the best ways customers can reduce their bill is by saving water. Deputy Director Megan Sheldon has programs to help customers assess their water usage, and they have tips and assistance for customers on how to save water. You can call them at 623-930-3596 to ask them questions and access those services if you're in need. In addition, the city has several programs to assist low to moderate income families to pay their water bills. To see if you qualify for one of these programs, please call the city's CAP office at 623-930-2854, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to explain all of those assistance programs.
Thank you, Vicki. Here's another question. Why can't you keep rates of up to 5,000 gallons or less as is, and raise rates on large users that wastewater?
Thank you again for the question. To help promote water conservation and also recognizing that higher users of water, users who use more water, do place a higher demand on the water system, the city's rates are tiered so that those who use more water are in fact assessed at a higher rate per gallon. By applying these increases across the board, the city is effectively raising the rates for the larger water users more than they are for the smaller water users.
Okay, question number 3. Please provide a valid business justification for possibly increasing water and sewer rates.
Thank you, Sue. Hello, everyone. I want to add to a couple of items that was mentioned during the presentation. One thing I want to remind everybody that with what Vicki said is that we are an enterprise fund. That means we don't get any money from the general fund. We only gain our revenue for paying our bills through the water bills that we send out. One of the things I think is important to kind of reiterate here is that this is a very complex system. It's a large system, as you heard in the presentation, and there's a lot of moving parts. We've got over 400,000 assets that we have to manage on a daily basis, and we want to make sure that we do that properly so we can have you go to your tap every minute, every day, and get the water out of there that you're expecting. Now, to operate such a complex system, we do have a fairly large expense. Our budget for this upcoming year is around $55 million to maintain and operate our system for you 24 hours a day. One of the key things that Dan talked about is that we have to be very aware of is inflation. Now, all of us here have been seeing the inflation start to go up, and it's not any different for this industrial complex. As he mentioned, inflation is going to add another $1.7 million to our operations and maintenance budget for this upcoming year. Now, what I've discussed with the City Council in the past is one of the key things that's driving our rates and our ability to maintain the system so you guys get what you need whenever you need it is our capital improvement plan. Our capital improvement plan is around a $250 million program, and I want to just take you back a little bit. In 2010, to 2017, the city was going through a downturn just like a lot of other people, and we chose not to raise rates during that period. So in 2017, we had several discussions with the City Council. We had a backlog of work that needed to be done in this complex, and so we put together a proposed plan, and that plan took us a lot higher than what we needed, what we had available to pay for it. So the City Council agreed to provide an average 6% per year increase to the water rates to get us over the hump, if you will, to recover some of the backlog work that we've done. One of the other key things that the council wanted and the citizens wanted when we had our public meetings last time is that they would like to see more often but lesser costs. So we have taken that to heart, and this program is going to peak at about mid-year next year, and we're going to start coming down. So this rate increase, as you might have seen, is 3.7%. So we've come down off of the 6, and we're down to 3.7. And we're getting down where it's more of a regular rate increase, and it is lower and right around the inflation, which is what the goal was for the council and what we heard from the citizens when we presented last time. And so I'll end this question with, it's very important that our redundancy is there and our reliability is there. We want to make sure that you get what you want out of the system every minute, every day, and we have backup systems that are required. We just can't plan to have one reservoir and to serve the whole city. We have to have 5 reservoirs to serve the city, and we make sure that the fire flow and the protection and the water quality is there for you.
Thank you, Craig. Next question. Will we get some decent drinking water out of an increase?
I'd like to address that. Thank you. I want to first let everybody know that our mission is safe, high-quality water to all customers at all times. We're very highly regulated, and we're regulated by the EPA and not the FDA, and which is more stringent. Now, I'd like to kind of give you a little of a point of view, kind of in a comparison. We all have different tastes related to liquids. We all have different tastes related to different food products. I'd like to give you an example. I like craft beer. So you go to a brewery and you get a series of beers, and some of them don't taste so good, but they're all high quality beer. So what our goal is to provide you high quality water, and some people's tastes may not, depending on if they've come here from different parts of the country, the water does taste differently from different parts of the region. But I want to assure you that it's very high quality drinking water. Now, many of our customers are satisfied with the quality of our water and prefer to use and we also offer other processes that are available to them to increase the taste of the water if they'd like it, and that is through your filtering systems in your tap, through RO systems that you can have in your kitchen, or the use of bottled water for drinking purposes. One of the other things that we deal with here on a daily basis, especially in this time of year, is algae in our lakes, our forest fires up north, and they provide us a real challenge, because when the fires are really bad up north, the ash comes down and goes into the watershed and comes down, and it comes towards us. So we have to be prepared chemically and properly in a process-wise to treat that water for both algae, which is a taste and odor issue, and the forest fire ash that comes to us. So that's how I'd like to address that question. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
Anything else, Megan?
Sure. I just want to bring people's attention to the Water Services website. Every year, we publish an annual water quality report, which has a lot of great information on the quality of Glendale's water, assuring you that it does meet the Safe Drinking Water Act and the standards set at the federal and state level. So if you have any questions on that, our water quality lab staff is able to take your questions and help you understand the water quality here in Glendale.
Okay, so we had a related question that came in that sort of it falls in this same category. This one just came into Facebook, and it is, can you drink the tap water?
You absolutely can drink the tap water.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Moving right along. Why is Glendale Water and Sewer almost twice what the rate in Phoenix is?
Can you go back to the slide? I'm going to have her go back to one of the previous slides that we showed up here. Are you able to do that? Okay, great. So as you can see by this chart behind me, Glendale is actually about in the middle of the spectrum when you compare its price for water and sewer for an average user of about 9,000 gallons per month to the rates and charges of the other cities, including Phoenix. Now you can see that the city of Phoenix is on the lower end of that spectrum, and that's really due to the fact that they have so many customers that they have the benefit of what we call economies of scale. And economies of scale just really means that they can spread some of their fixed costs over a much higher number of customers. I would like to, however, point out and let you know that where possible, Glendale also partners with other agencies such as the City of Phoenix, the City of Peoria, and other West Valley cities to share resources to gain some of those same economies of scale. An example would be the Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant that we share with City of Peoria, and one that was mentioned earlier, the Sub-Regional Wastewater Reclamation Facility in Phoenix, which is shared with a number of cities. This benefits the City of Glendale in a similar way to create those economies of scale, but they aren't as great as the economies of scale that Phoenix is able to generate because of their very large customer base.
Thank you, Vicki. Now let's turn to the drought. We have a question that has come in. Considering the concern about the drought, first question from this individual. How should we proceed with our shrubs, our trees, our grass? Do we keep this or do we eliminate portions and just go desert with cacti? Second question from this individual. How do city rates reflect water shortages?
Thank you for those questions. So I'm going to start with the answering the first question, which was about the shrubs and trees. Trees and shrubs are important green infrastructure to the community, both on public and private lands. Significant investment has been made to install and maintain that green infrastructure, and they should continue to be maintained. They improve our quality of life by providing shade, mitigating the urban heat island effect, and improve air quality. People enjoy the grassy areas for recreation, such as youth and adult sports, and family events. However, we do live in the desert, and there are many low water use plants available for us to choose from. It's the right plant in the right place. Please contact our conservation and sustainable living programs. They have a lot of resources, pamphlets, brochures showing all of those low water use plants available. And they're also a resource to do landscape rebate assessments and water efficiency assessments. For the second question, how do the city's rates reflect water shortages? As was stated in one of the previous slides, we are expecting the raw water costs to go up over the next few years. Approximately 4% next year is what we're projecting. So it was factored into the rate model. However, as has been explained throughout the presentation, this rate increase is meant to help improve our operations and maintenance of the system, and replace equipment or infrastructure that's reached its end of life. So all that plays into the rates as well. Drought is not new. Arizona has been in a drought for over 20 years. We've been planning and preparing for drought and shortages for over 30 years. So just a few of the examples that the city has taken. First of all, our water portfolio. By having both access to CAP water and SRP water and groundwater, that puts us in a really good position. We have water conservation programs, as I mentioned, with the landscape rebate program. We have a lot of education associated with that, and that's been since 1986. This has helped us use our valuable water resources efficiently. And finally, the city does have a drought management plan. We're using that to help minimize the impacts of a reduced water supply, and this plan is being reviewed to identify additional measures to help reduce water use where possible.
Thank you, Megan. Next question. Is the city wasting water?
I'll take that question. The city, we never purposely waste water. You will see water in the streets from time to time. There may be some of our customers that have systems that are overflowing their yards or the streets, and we need to have that addressed, and we would love it for someone to give us a call. And if they see water in the street that they feel is being wasted, please let us know, and we will investigate that immediately. We also have a process of testing our distribution system through our fire hydrants that does put water into the street, but that's done on a very controlled purpose, so we can make sure that we keep the distribution system clean and free of debris, and the water quality and the chlorine residual in our systems, that we bring it through so the water quality stays where it needs to be.
Thank you, Craig. This next question is about sewer rates. I studied and follow your money, as in the past there have been budget projects to expand sewer rates for areas when it comes to septic. Is this still in progress? And if not, when will that project resume?
I can address that. Thank you for the question. The city, a few years back, had a program for putting areas on septic on sewer. There's a program that's monitored in the engineering department, and I'd like to refer the gentleman or the person to the engineering department and so get an update on the program. Just a little bit about the program. When we initially established it several years ago, is that 40% of the people in the neighborhood have to agree to bring sewer main lines into their neighborhood, and then they have to pay an impact fee, and then they have to pay a plumber to connect up to the tap once it's installed.
Thank you, Craig. The next question. Why are water rates going up after you decided to add a water park, the Crystal Lagoons, to our city?
I believe I can answer that question. I think that we've answered a number of times sort of why the water rates are going up. Again, it has to do with the infrastructure needs of the utility and just general costs. As for the project for the Crystal Lagoons, that is a private project. The lagoon will be operated by a private operator, and that operator will pay for their water. So the city is not supplying free water to that entity. It is a paying customer, or will be a paying customer of the city once it is completed.
Thank you, Vicki. Next question. Can you identify leaking supply piping? And is it fiscally advantageous to seek out and replace and repair that?
I'll take that one also. That was leaking pipes for distribution system. What's the question again?
Can you identify leaking supply piping?
Yes, we have, well, one of the most obvious ways of a leaky supply pipe is the water comes to the surface, and we're notified either by citizens or by the police department or whatever that we have a leak, and we immediately go and check out the leak, and then we will isolate the leak, and then we'll make the repairs on the system.
Excellent.
Can I add something to that as well? Another thing that we do within the city is we monitor what's called lost and unaccounted for water. So we compare the amount of water that we're producing in our plants to the amount of water that we bill our customers. And that's another way that we can look to see if there are, say, hidden leaks or excessive losses. At this point, there are not any. That's a very low number for the city of Glendale. Craig can tell you what the number is exactly, but it is a low number, which tells us that we're doing a good job of maintaining those distribution lines.
Let me add to that. We're looking at about 6%. The state wants the municipality to be less than 10% on lost and unaccounted for water. We're sitting at about 6% right now. Also, with respect to leaks, our water meter readers are out there every day reading meters. So they are our eyes on the ground. They're opening up every box, and sometimes they find leaks in the box, and that tells them to double check things. And then at that point, we can actually, if they see it's on the user side of the meter, they will get in contact with the user and let them know that they've got a leak, and we go out of our way to help them to determine what they need to do to take care of that leak. And we also teach people how to read their meter and determine if they've got a leak in their household.
Okay, thank you very much, Vicki and Craig. Would you please talk about the residential billing and cost in terms of the 6-step tiered water use charges?
Go ahead.
Can
Okay.
you maybe repeat the question?
Ask the question again, please.
Would you please talk about the residential billing and cost in terms of the 6-step tiered water use charges?
So again, I don't have the actual charges, so I can't speak to what the charges are by tier or anything like that. If a person needs some more information about how their specific bill is working, I encourage them to contact our customer service call center. But as we stated earlier, those rates are tiered by level basically for 2 reasons. One is to encourage conservation. It's a conservation strategy for the city, but in addition to that, it takes into account the peak usage by larger customers, and the city has to build to a peak usage, which costs more for us to upsize our treatment plants and facilities and things like that.
Great, next question. Will the city water department review my current usage and adjust accordingly?
So as we've mentioned a couple of times, we do have the services provided through Ms. Sheldon and the Water Services Department to help you assess your water usage and determine if there are ways in which you could save water. We also have our customer service area that takes calls if you have a question about your specific bill. And so if you have a question, if you think that you've had a leak, for example, or there may be something inaccurate about your bill, or you just have a question about where you fell in those tiers, or how, what you can do to maybe help with your bill, then I encourage you to call our customer service line, which I believe is 3910? Is that 930-3190. 623-931-3190.
930.
And also for those of you who are here while I'm thinking about it, we do have, as he was just speaking, our customer service manager, Paul Lopez, here. And so if any of you have a specific question, he'll be here. He can maybe assist you, or at least he'll give you his information to contact him in his office for those kinds of specific questions.
Great, thank you, Vicki. Please discuss how we will have enough water for future growth.
Want to take that one?
Sure. So, as mentioned earlier, we do have a very diverse portfolio. About 40 to 45% of our water is CAP water, and 40 to 45% is SRP, and groundwater makes up the remainder. We've worked very hard to supplement that portfolio with additional supplies when it becomes available. So for example, several years ago, the city entered into an agreement with SRP to raise the dam at Roosevelt Lake and create a new conservation space. That gave us the opportunity to get additional supplies through the SRP system. That's just one example. So on the SRP side, in a given year, we're typically around 50% of our overall available supplies is what we're using. CEP, we pretty much use what we have available for us. So we do have enough water to serve today. We have enough water to serve the community in the future, including the growth that is expected in the next few years here in our service area. I do want to point out that any growth west of 115th Avenue is not served by the City of Glendale Water Department. It is served by a private provider, and there's several out there west of 115th Avenue. So any growth that's happening out there is not being served through the city's portfolio.
Okay, that covers the questions that have come in via email and via Facebook. So we're happy to see that there are many members of many of our residents in the audience today. And if any of you have questions, this would be the time. If you still have questions, please feel free to walk up to the microphone and ask them, and we are here to answer your questions. Is there anyone? Great, okay. As he walks up, I wanted to mention the difference between questions and comments. If you have comments, you can submit your comments to us in email at www.waterrates@glendaleaz.com. You may attend our August City Council meetings. There will be an opportunity for public comments. This meeting's for information, and it's for questions, so we're glad that you have a question. And sir, would you please?
Questions. My name's Gary
Great.
Livingston.
Perfect.
I live in Glendale. I'm in Ray Mauner's district, unfortunately, but that's where I am. I know for a fact that the feds are going to enact a rational program based on the level that Lake Mead is at. And everybody up there has been talking about the snowpack here in Arizona that supplies Salt River and the CAP, that we get our water from Lake Mead. When it's going to happen, it is going to happen by 2022. So I've never seen any policy from the City of Glendale about what's about ready to happen. That needs to be addressed. And the second issue is conservation. This city just approved a massive water park at Westgate. I wouldn't call that conservation. And if that's the case, what is the price of water that they're going to charge? You're going to charge them. That's not an area where they really need the water. We need to water the citizens. So I'd like to know why we're doing things like that when we got massive inflation. It started, it's getting worse. We have a food tax in this city that affects all seniors. Still haven't worked that issue. And you got issues down there in Camelback Ranch that we're paying the Phoenix 20%. The other question is, we got people like Peoria, we're servicing Peoria. So on an infrastructure plan, I haven't seen an overall 10-year policy plan from anybody, and I've asked Ray Mauner more than once about that, about why isn't there a bond over a 10-year period for the amount of infrastructure that the water services need, and I've never seen it. Thank you.
So Thank you, sir. There were several questions in there. Were you able to get those?
Megan, do you want to answer the first question and then I'll answer?
Let me answer one of the first ones, which was related to the Tier 1 shortage on the Colorado River. Yes, Mr. Livingston, you're correct. The projection is going to be that Lake Mead's water level is going to fall below the Tier 1 level as of January 1st, 2022. The first sectors that are going to be impacted by that shortage are the farmers, agricultural sector. Municipalities, including Glendale, will not see a reduction in our supply in 2022, and it's unknown yet where we're going to end up in 2023, 2024, 2025. And then in 2025, 2026 is when they're going to be renegotiating between the states. So yes, there's a lot going on regionally on the Colorado River, and we're going to be presenting some information to council at an upcoming workshop as well.
So, great. I'll try to answer the other questions as I understood them. So again, regarding the Crystal Lagoons project, that project will be a commercial customer of the city, and they will pay the going rate for water. As far as conservation is concerned, while it is a large lake, lagoon, it is expected to be used less than 1% of the city's overall portfolio of water. So it is a large amount of water that the city has, and they are a relatively small customer in relation to the overall city. And the third question, what was the third question?
Peoria plan?
The other question had to do with the CIP, the 10-year plan, and also the Peoria plant. So as I mentioned earlier, we do share a plant with the city of Peoria, but we don't provide cost-free those services to the city of Peoria. They pay for their share of the operations plant, they pay for their own water, and then they pay for the distribution out of that plant to their customers. So it's a joint venture together that we've done, again, to create some of those economies of scale that helps both Glendale and Peoria in that area. As for 10-year planning, the city does have a 10-year plan for utilities. There is a 10-year CIP that is created every year and updated every year. And in addition to that, during these rate study times, and when you see, if the council does decide to go ahead with this notice of intention, there will be a report on file that gives you an analysis of the rates and includes all of the plans for the city to issue bonds to pay for portions of that infrastructure. These bonds are different in the sense that they aren't bonds that the public has to vote on. So I just don't want anyone to confuse them with general obligation bonds that need to go to the voters. These are revenue bonds that are based on the revenues of the water utility and paid from just that source. And so there is a borrowing plan that we do have in place, and that's all been incorporated into this rate analysis.
Vicki, if I may expand on that a little bit, Peoria and Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant, we're partners. Right now, we're a 77% owner, and they're a 23% owner. So they pay 23% of all of the costs associated with operating the Pyramid Peak plant. All of our staff are the only ones that operates the plant. So they pay and are billed 23% of all of our operating costs at Pyramid Peak. One of the key things that they've been undergoing now for 18 months is an expansion of Pyramid Peak. Peoria is paying 100%. They needed 15 million gallon expansion at Pyramid Peak, so they're paying 100% of the cost for the expansion of Pyramid Peak. Plus, we also needed to do some rehabilitation in the process systems of the existing plant, and they're paying 23% of that. After the expansion is completed, the ownership between the two cities is going to change, and the City of Glendale will become a 56% owner, and Peoria will be a 44% owner. So they will be paying 44% of all the costs associated with operating Pyramid Peak.
Great, thank you very much. We have one more question that has come into Facebook. If we have enough water for future growth, why are you also encouraging us to conserve?
Again, we're in the desert. water is our most vital resource here, and so we always want to use it wisely to the best of our ability. We do ask that you conserve, use what you need, and not waste it if at all possible. Fix your leaks, fix your irrigation system leaks. So yes, we do have water for growth, but conservation is always important for now and for the future.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more individuals with questions? Great. Come on up and say your name and then ask your question. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Natalie Telemack, and I have 4 questions, and I'll just ask one at a time. So you say you need all this money. You don't really show us like the money that you collect from the people. And I'm wondering, through the grapevine, I heard that the City of Glendale got $1 billion from the federal government at the end of the year last year, and nobody's talking about this. And it sounds like a huge amount of money that could be used towards helping the infrastructure and lowering the cost of water. What's going on with this money that the city allegedly got from the federal government?
Okay, I'll try to answer that question. First of all, there are a number of places that you can go to on the city's website to see the amount of money collected from the water customers. We do provide a monthly financial report and also an annual financial report that shows you what the money was, how much money was collected, what it was spent on. There's also a lot of good information in the city's budget book that shows you a little more detail than even the financial reports about where the money came from and where it's used to, or how it's spent and what expenditures. As for the federal money, we did receive notice late in May, I believe, that the city would receive an allocation of what they call American Rescue Plan Act funding. So we call it ARPA, because we like acronyms, ARPA. The city's allocation will come in 2 installments. So we've received about $30 million, and there'll be another approximately $30 million that we receive next year. We did anticipate that in the budget, and the council has not yet made a decision about exactly where those funds will be spent. There are a lot of rules and regulations that govern where that money can be spent, and the finance department, along with myself and other individuals in the city, are still looking at that. The federal government has not come out with their final guidelines. However, they have come out with some, and we are looking at that, and then we'll be taking that to council for them to discuss where and how they will spend those funds.
And yet the taxes will never be decreased, because I've never seen you guys lower your city taxes on goods or food. You only keep raising them. So you're saying, oh, we're going to think about it, we're going to discuss it. But in the meantime, we're charging you. And if we get additional help, we're not going to turn around and lower your costs. So why are you price gouging the citizens of Glendale when you have this money coming in and you know it can help towards alleviating the amount that you're collecting from us?
And so, again, we are still studying the guidelines for that money, but ironically, and this may surprise you, one of the things you are not allowed to do with that money is use it to offset a lower tax rate. So there is specific guidance in the legislation that says you cannot use it to then supplant or lower people's tax rates. However, there will be projects, there will be an opportunity, I believe, for public input also with the council regarding the use of those federal dollars.
Okay, so it's my understanding that the city fluoridates water, and it would be my understanding, I could be incorrect, that you actually have to pay somebody to fluoridate the water. And there are tons of studies that show that fluoride is unhealthy for people and probably even causes cancer. It's fluorine that is healthy, allegedly, for people, but not fluoride. So you could lower costs if you'd quit fluoridating our water and putting in chemicals that we don't want in our water. So have you looked at that? And if so, why aren't you doing something to lower costs by getting rid of these unnecessary chemicals in our water that we don't want?
Let me talk to you about the fluoride. The fluoride is a mandated feed rate that we have to, by council, to feed to the through the water. And 0.7 parts per million is the amount that we try to keep into the system. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, the city of Phoenix had a round table there to have people come in and talk about the pluses and minuses of using fluoride in the system. And the rest of the cities here kind of listened and fell in line with that round table. The fluoride is really spoken highly of with the American Dental Association, and so the City of Glendale has chosen to continue to feed fluoride to our citizens to not exceed 0.7 parts per million on a monthly basis.
Okay, so you're taking some sort of association that will provide misinformation to the public, just like all these three-letter agencies, and you're saying mandate, which means it's not a law. There's nothing that requires you legally to fluoridate our water, and yet you're doing it and charging us when government is supposed to be servants of the people. You're supposed to be listening to the people. The people do not want the fluoride, and you could help lower costs, but yet you're going against the people, and therefore you're not truly representing the people of the city of Glendale. Mandate is not a law.
So the comments that you made are things that are appropriate for comments, and if you'd like to put those in writing, as Ms. Breding stated, that would be great. Also, they are being recorded for other members of the public. But I think we've already answered the question as to why the utility is doing that, and so anything above that question is a comment that we'll take note of, and if we could move on to the next question.
Okay. All right, so you said that you would address the waste of water, but who is truly the person to make sure that the water is not wasted? Because I walk my dog around the park near my house frequently at the time when the sprinkler systems come on and there's barely anybody there. And I already complained about this a few years ago when they had a council meeting. I said, whoever is maintaining the parks isn't doing their job, and the sprayers that are next to the sidewalks are partway pointed into the street. We got so much dirt, dry areas, and just last week I go around the park and one of the sprayers was broken on the south side, and it was just shooting straight up in the air, going in the street. Our park wasn't getting any water, so our parks are not looking very good. The water's going straight in the streets, and who can we hold accountable for this waste of water? Because it adds up over time, and plus we're supposed to have nice green parks, and we're paying, and we're not getting the service we're supposed to have. The people in the Parks Department are not overseeing their sprayers properly. Who do we contact? Especially when And if we call that number and they won't do their job, then who do we call after that? So I need contact information.
Sure, you can call me. Craig Johnson at 623-930-4100. And the Parks Department is a customer of ours, so they pay for the water they take, and wasting water is not good for their budget either. So if I find out we've got a poorly operating irrigation system in the parks, we'll get with Jim Burke, who's the department director there, and we will investigate that and look into what we can do to help him. The Water Services has helped him and partnered on a couple of other parks, and I don't see any reason why we can't continue that process to help him make sure he better manages the water.
Okay. Yeah, I've complained about it, and I see that they just continue to keep turning their back on making sure that the parks are proper, that the sprayers are properly lined up. Okay, so you guys are doing this tier thing, trying to encourage conservation of water. However, you guys can price gouge people on the sewer by making up storylines and lying about your customers. So, and what I mean about lying about your customers, you have customers such as me who use a ton of water outside because I have these gigantic pine trees which provide shade and good air quality and a place for birds, and they need a lot of water. And there have been times where I paid $167 a month in sewer alone. So the price of the water is minuscule, but it's ridiculous that I've been paying that much amount in sewer when it's going into the ground because it's not going through the sewer system. So essentially, what your department is saying is that I go to the toilet 50 times more a day, I wash more clothes, I take 50 more showers per day than the average citizen by price gouging me. So what do we do to get you to stop cheating customers like me and price gouging me as if I'm using the sewer system in a manner that I'm not? Pine trees need way more water than Palo Verde trees.
So the city does have a program for specifically designed, it's called a sewer appeal process. So yes, we do base your sewer bill on the amount of water that you use during the lower water usage months. So for your January, February, March bills, that's every year we adjust customers' sewer bills based on those theoretically lower months of usage of water. But there is a sewer appeal process. As I mentioned earlier, we have our customer service manager, Paul Lopez, here. He's happy, he's right behind you. He's happy to talk with you about that. And with any customer who would like information about how to look at their sewer, we have a form that you can fill out. We can look at that and determine how much water is needed for that outside landscaping, and we do have a process to adjust our sewer fees accordingly.
I already know about that, and I've used it several times, and I still haven't gotten my sewer prices lowered. So when your Paul Lopez, being the dictator that he is, having full control over tyrannizing people to pay this money because my water is
ma'am,
held
I'm sorry, I'm
hostage.
going to have to interrupt you. While we will take questions,
Okay,
this
but
is
the
not the
question
time for comment. Excuse me.
Who is-
And
do I
I'm not
go
going
to?
to. I'm not
My
going to
question
allow
is,
you
who
to
do I go
attack
to?
my staff. Do you understand? You have to be respectful, and we're not going to be having attacks on our staff. So I'm happy to, you may also call me. I'm happy to try to work with you on that. My name is Vicki Rios. I'm one of the assistant city managers.
Vicki what?
Rios.
Okay.
You can call me at 623-930-2116 and be happy to discuss that with you.
Okay, so who has the power to correct these injustices when a person doesn't appeal and doesn't get justice. And
So again, I've given you my contact information. I think that's more of a personal question to you. We're here to talk about rates in general and the city's system. But if you have a question specific to your customer account or the way that you specifically feel that you've been treated, I've given you my contact information. This is not exactly the proper forum for that type of discussion.
Okay.
Okay,
But
thank
it
you. I
still
appreciate
has
that.
to do with rates, because this is the sewer rate that you're charging me.
I understand, but that's more of an individual discussion. I think it'd be better for us to have that discussion privately.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Are there any more audience members who have questions? Wonderful. Go ahead and come up to the microphone and say your name and ask your question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Garcia from District 15 from Glendale. Sir, you'd mentioned you requested around, I think, 6.9% of an increase, and then you had to fall or just get the 3.7. Was that increase basically then just going to keep the status quo? Because I had questions that were asking, would this increase help with, I guess, go above and beyond the EPA standards? Because the EPA standards has certain things that aren't even tested, and they don't even have a statutory limit because they just not. So I was wondering, would these increases, one, help with that? But it sounded like you didn't have the funding to even get where you needed to be. And I guess with that additional funding that was coming in, was there things that we're looking at, like sustainable measures, I guess, to heat and treat water, or using like old school practices? And I mean, we live in Arizona. To not use solar seems pretty crazy to me. And whatever part of processing for water. Mm-hmm. So I have two questions. So that, well, if you can address that one first.
Well, I didn't catch the whole question, but let me see if I can address it. When I mentioned the 6% average for the last 4 years for water and sewer, that was there to help us take care of a backlog of projects we needed to take care of in our system and in our plants, and get us where we felt we needed to be. We're still not quite there yet, but we feel that looking at our 5-year forecast, that what we need to do to continue to maintain the system and cover our expenses and costs, that the 3.7 across the board will help us get there. I don't have a crystal ball for the future, but we do the 5-year forecasting, and that should supply us with the revenue that we need to pay our debts on the new bonds that we have to sell for the construction work, and the expenses also to operate and maintain the system, and to cover the costs associated with the additional rehabilitation and stuff work that we see forecasted coming up.
So it's more, but so I guess it would be more status quo, because you requested 6. So that seems like you're not going to go above. There's no way to gain. You're basically scrapping from the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I won't sit here and tell you that something's not going to come up at some point that we have to address in a more financial manner. Okay. But what we see in our 10-year plan, and for the first 5 years of our 10-year plan, we've got a plan that the 3.7 supports taking care of our debt service, our operations and maintenance, and our capital program.
Okay. If that's the amount of money that we had, then that's going to be used. My second question, ma'am, you had mentioned the economy of scale for the number of users, and per one of your slides, you mentioned that most of our reservoir was in Lake Powell and Lake Mead. That's where if I'm understanding the slide and your comments correctly, that's where our storage is taking place. So if there is, or the majority of our storage, because we're not going to get water from the dirt, I mean, unless it falls into a man-made reservoir. But if that's the majority of our water, and it seems to come from everything, why aren't we splitting that equally? Because all of Arizona pretty much does get it from the Colorado River. Most of our water comes from the Colorado River. And due to the drought, we all are suffering because of it. So according to the economy of scale, how does that not balance out, since we all get it from our main source? And I guess, I would like to hear how that would affect that.
Thank you for the question. When I'm talking about economies of scale, we're not talking specifically about the cost of the raw water that you're talking about, such as what is stored in those reservoirs. We're really talking about what it costs to treat the water. And so when you operate, for example, a water treatment plant, you can scale that treatment plant up so that it doesn't take necessarily twice as many workers to produce twice as much water. That's kind of what the economies of scale means. So in the city of Phoenix, they can make a larger plant and it may serve 10 times as many customers, but it won't cost 10 times the amount that the same type of plant would cost in Glendale. So that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about economies of scale. There are certain types of costs, like operating costs for plants and other, also for wastewater treatment plants, that it doesn't necessarily take to scale twice as many people to produce twice as much water. And Phoenix has the benefit of that with their large customer base. Does that make sense?
It does, and I guess to your point too, ma'am, you had mentioned that our sources that we are getting, like unless there's other sources that I am unaware of, most of all water comes from the Colorado River. And if it is or piped in and brought in through that, because we haven't been getting rain in for, I know, a long time, or abundance amount of rain that we need. So if that is somewhat, I'll call that true or more truth, that we get our majority of water from one source, do individual cities work together, I guess, on that level to know to address the economy of scale, why aren't we all get our main source of water from one spot? And the disparity seems strange considering all the water comes from one majority source.
So if we can go back to the slide that showed the pie chart, it shows our three sources, which is the Central Arizona Project, the Colorado River. For Glendale, it's about 40 to 45% of our supply. I can't speak for all the other cities or the state of Arizona. And the other 40 to 45% comes from SRP. And there's a series of reservoirs on the SRP system. There's, like you mentioned, Lake Powell and Lake Mead on the Colorado system. From an economy of scale perspective, as Craig and Vicki mentioned, we have the Pyramid Peak water treatment plant, and that does treat the Central Arizona Project water. So there was a partnership with Peoria. We were both getting that water source. Let's treat it together, share the costs, and provide it to our citizens. So that's just one example, but we do have the three different sources here in Glendale to serve our community.
You said the captive Colorado River, the groundwater and the SRP, if you can explain to me then, the groundwater and SRP, where does that water come from? Because it doesn't just materialize. Where does that water come from?
Right, so there's, like I said, a series of reservoirs on the Salt River and the Verde River, and that's east to northeast Arizona is the watershed that collects the rain and the snow melt into the reservoirs. It comes through a series of canals.
But from what is the main source is my, I guess, those are little individual pockets of water. What feeds that? What feeds them? Would it not be?
Rain and snow.
Okay.
Rain and snow.
Okay. So
when we talk about a drainage area, we're talking about whole northeastern Arizona and central. All the rain and snowfall that falls, it flows through different drainages and goes into the main reservoirs, Roosevelt being the biggest. Right. And then you got downstream dams. So you got 5 dams on the Salt and you got 2 dams on the Verde River. They're there for SRP to supply the cities with the water rights that they're authorized in their cities for Salt River Project water.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other audience members who have questions? Okay, go ahead and come on down, sir. And when you get to the microphone, please state your name and then ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Joe Andriano. I live in Glendale. I want to bring this down to the individual user, myself. I got a bill this week. I looked at it, sewer and water, the sewer rate and the was the same. Water rate was different, and I looked at it closely, and It went up from 89 to 97, and I think I had used, I'm looking at this, a factor of about 9, and I don't know if that's not, that can't be 9 gallons, that must be 9,000 gallons, right? Yeah, okay. I'm just learning how to read these things. And I'm thinking to myself, hypothetically speaking, if I think I might have had a leak in the system where they read the meter, and I haven't looked at it lately, who takes care of that? Does the city fix the leak, or do I have to call in a plumber?
So I'll try and answer that question. First of all, thank you again. And we do, as I've said earlier, have our customer service person here. So he can help you look at your specific bill, and he can also help you look at your trend. So meaning if you were going along, and I'm just making up a number, but if you were going along using 6,000 gallons, and then you had a spike like that to 9, and then you go back to 6, we may be able to look at that, and then there are some things that we may be able to do to help you. If the leak is on your side of the water meter, it's the customer's responsibility to fix that leak. Common leaks are things like in your toilet or in your irrigation system. I think those are probably the most common. If the leak is on the city side, it wouldn't reflect in your bill because you're only being billed for what is happening after your meter. If we see a leak on the city side, we do encourage you to call those in, so that we can take care of them and not use excessive water. But we do provide programs. You can call our number, or if you'll hang around for a few minutes, Mr. Lopez is happy, I'm sure, to meet with you and get some information. He'd have to go look at your account, and he can call you back and let you know what's going on.
Okay, that would be great, because you say it's on the city side, you meaning on the where the meter is?
It'd have to be on the other side of on the street side of the meter.
Correct.
If it's on the customer side of the meter, on the other side, it's your responsibility.
Yeah, okay. I do have, there's a couple of caveats to this too. I'm going to be kind of spilling my guts out here, but I just recently took in a roommate, so he uses water. I know that. And I had a leak on the side of my house. It was one of the sprinkler heads leaked. So I had a landscape plumber come in and cap it. And that might have been it. And then my pool uses water for some reason, so it uses a lot of water. So
this is something, I'm glad you expanded on your question, because this is something that we get with customers a lot. As I mentioned earlier, water rates are tiered so that as you use more water, your price per gallon goes up. But when you have a leak, if you'll call and contact us and we can see that it was clearly a leak and that it was then later repaired, what we do is adjust you back down so that you're not paying that extra cost per tier, because you're not really a high water user. You were just an accidental high water user for that period of time. So there are some things we can do to help mitigate those leaks once you've fixed the leak. We don't, we want you to get the leak fixed, and then we'll make an adjustment. So again, if you'll talk to customer service, I think Paul will be able to help you out with that.
okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Are there any other audience members who would like to come up and ask a question? And when you get up there, please say your name and ask your question. Thank you.
My name is Bill Demsky. I live in Glendale. I've lived in this area, 55th and Greenway, for 40 years. And over that period of time, I must have I couldn't fathom how many calls I made to Sunburst Irrigation, City of Glendale, whatever. So you can count on, for these 40 years, at least twice a week, you have this flood coming down my street. The contour of the land comes down, majority of it, comes down 53rd, 55th, down my street and in the Greenway. But nobody has done, I couldn't fathom the amount of money that came out of that aquifer. The pumps they have is on Paradise and 51st. And this aquifer, I am totally amazed we haven't had sinkholes in that whole area with the amount of water being drawn from that aquifer. And nobody wants to do anything about it. The destruction of the streets over these 40 years, unbelievable. And the taxpayers, I get to pay for the damage of these idiots dumping all this water for 40 years. Whatever. It's right now, you can go 53rd Avenue right around Terrebonne. There's a woman who has 2 horses right on the corner. And if you're lucky, you can go out there. She occasionally does it. She has her 2 horses on bridles, and they're out there eating the grass along the curb line. The amount of grass out there, enough to feed 2 horses, God knows how many times a week. So anyway, all this wasted water, destruction of the streets, nobody wants to do anything about it until we start suffering sinkholes or that aquifer finally dries up. But my other question is about why the city allows wasting of the water. This was 3 years ago. The area from Greenway to Beardsley, 59th to 75th, there was miles of roads that were totally reconstructed, milled out, new asphalt, millions of dollars. So I just happened to be going up Greenway the day after, and right on along the right-of-way, especially on the east side of Greenway, it looked like somebody was out there during the night painting half moons out there. From the sprinklers going into that brand new, totally reconstructed road, from all the oil being washed out. Half moon, all the way up. But the worst part is the area from on Union Hill, 67th to 75th. You drive down there. I was down there 6:30 this morning, the road was flooded. Twice a day they flood that road for these idiots to have a rainforest in the median. That grass is 1.5 feet tall right now. Pine trees, a couple pine trees are dead because they're being overwatered. Along the right-of-way, all the water being dumped into so these 3-year-old streets costing millions of dollars being washed away by all this water being dumped in those brand new multi-million-dollar streets, all the oil being washed out of it. 3-year-old streets, and there's potholes in there already from that constant twice-a-day flushing of these sprinklers and median in the right-of-way. How many times, especially 3 years ago, how many times I've been up there at that podium, city council meeting, nobody wants to do anything. I just paid for millions of dollars of totally reconstructed roads, and nobody does anything about it.
So, Mr. Dembski, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Again, we'll entertain questions if you have a question.
That's my question.
If you
Why
have
is
comments, then they're better served by just sending your comments in.
My question being is, why does the city allow all this wasted water?
So, the city does not allow or encourage wasted water. We have a number of ways that you can report that. Mr. Johnson has given
Water
you
conservation,
his
how many calls
number.
I made?
Excuse me?
Water conservation, how many times I've called her, especially the flush irrigation coming down the street.
Mr. Dembski, if you want to discuss specific situations where you've called and not.
Specific situation.
Mr.
I'm
Dembski,
telling you.
again, I'm
Union
asking you
Hill,
to be
67th
respectful.
to 75th.
And we will answer questions, and I'm trying to answer your question. You're interrupting me.
Simple question. Why
I'm
does the
trying to
city
answer your
allow-
question.
Why does the city allow all this wasted water going on?
The city does not allow or encourage
What do
wasted
you
water.
call it then? How many years? At least 3 years now I've been calling about specifically for these roads being destroyed up there, and it's still going on. So how can't you tell me that the city does something about wasted water?
So we can talk.
No way.
We can talk specifically about your examples.
What's that?
You gotta stop lying to this man. You say you don't allow it, and yet he's proven to you that you do allow it. So stop lying and tell him how you're gonna correct the lies that you've been telling him over these years.
Okay, so again, these are comments that you have. I am not going to take
I'm not
personal
commenting.
attacks
I'm
on
asking a
myself or any of
question.
my staff.
My
Be happy to
question
discuss it
being-
with you, Mr. Dembski. I will give you my phone number after the meeting. We can have a conversation about it. I appreciate it
40
very
years
much.
with flush irrigation and there's still no solution? Roads being destroyed? Just raise the taxes. Simple solution. Raise the taxes.
Are there any more individuals who have questions for us?
question. Why don't you, my name is
Sir, could you say your name? Thank you. And
Why don't you wait till after the federal government gives you money for the fixing our sewers and fixing all our roadways and all that, the money they're going to give you for that before you raise taxes, and then you can adjust and see whether you need to raise them or not. That was my question.
I'm not sure I'm not sure I heard your question. Let me see if I heard you.
They're going to give you money for the infrastructures, and you're going to be getting money for the infrastructures. That'll help offset our taxes. You're going to raise our taxes now, and that money that you get from the government for infrastructure, not really going to do anything for our taxes. If you postpone the raise tax now and see what they give you, then you might not have to raise our taxes.
Okay, I think I understand your question. Your question is, why are we doing this now, and why don't we wait until we have looked at what the federal government is giving us in terms of money. So first of all, these are not taxes, these are fees for water usage, and so they are two very different things. This is an increase in water fees, and the council is still looking at that, and that will be a council decision, and that type of a question isn't one that the staff can really answer. That's a question that you would want to make it also as a comment, and we can record that. The meeting is being recorded to express that you would prefer, it sounds like you would prefer for them to wait until after it's been decided what's going to happen with those federal funds. That's a comment that we can take record of. Thank you.
are there any other individuals in the audience who would like to ask questions? Okay. Sir, come on up. Thank you. And while he's walking up, I wanted to mention again that the place to submit your comments, www.waterrates@glendaleaz.com, and that's where you can submit those to waterrates@glendaleaz.com. And we have it up there. Thank you.
My name is Antonio Danieli. I live in Phoenix for 45 years. One quick question. We can refurbish Lake Mead with a 4-foot diameter pipe coming from Alaska. You know, it's only 900 miles left to bring in the water when 2 years will be full. And it's been in the paper several times, but nobody's seen that. You guys get the money, but you don't use it. You keep borrowing money, you keep using the money. Why don't you refill the lake so we have the water for the rest of our life? Maybe our children have something to look forwards. Arizona need the water. Otherwise, you got to stop building all this building. We're all going to be starving.
So I'm not familiar with the program that you're talking about. Megan, are you familiar with that?
It's been in the paper. I'll bring you a copy.
Well, I'm not experienced with some of the information you're talking about, but I am aware that there's been a number of entities that's looking at different options for water into Arizona, be it from the East Mississippi River to the Great Lakes to whatever. I've heard that myself, but I don't know where that is at right now. Now the Lake Mead and Lake Powell, they come under the purview and management of the Bureau of Reclamation. So that's a federal entity, and they control and own the dams. So what we do is we keep an ear to the ground, we keep listening to what they're doing, and we keep conserving and following the rules that we do, but we have no control over what happens with the Bureau of Rec and their plans. Although I do know that there's conversations being discussed about that, but I'm not sure I know where it's at.
I'll ship you the papers, how to do it, because it's all you need to go from Alaska, 900 miles, and you go right to the river, and you got all the water you need. But people are not doing it. And the rest of our countries are drowning, but they don't want to pass the water. I'll give you a good example. Canada, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but Lake Ontario is 7 feet higher than it used to be. I lived there for 18 years. And then people lost the properties. Their water can be piped across the countries, no difference in the gas pipe and oil. without no problem. Think about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more individuals in the audience who have questions at this time? And if not, we have another Facebook question. This has to do with agricultural water use. Do you anticipate agricultural water usage in Glendale to decrease in the future years? And will that decrease help with residents with their water rates?
Let me address that.
Thanks, Craig.
When she talks about agricultural water, there's two types. We've got the SRP handles the ag for their water rights in their territory, and then CAP has Colorado River water that they use for agricultural purposes. So in the Tier 1 that we talked about earlier in the drought, there is a reduction in agricultural water that will be coming from the Colorado Canal, and it will be going down to southeastern Arizona, like Pima County or whatever, and then the Salt River Project has no plans for adjusting agricultural water here. We just had a meeting with them, and their acre feet per acre that they're allocating to this has no cuts in it defined for agriculture. Drew, if you have anything you want to add to that, did I cover it okay? No.
Are there any more Facebook questions? Okay. Thank you. All right, we have another question from an audience member. And when you get up there, just a reminder, please give us your name and ask your question.
Okay, my name is Verna Dabney, and I live in Glendale. All right, in yesterday's paper, which was Monday, July the 26th, and today's July the 27th. And in both front pages, it shows how low the water is in both places. We're not to be concerned. We just do what we want to do. We build these water parks, but yet it says that the water level has dropped 1,075 feet above sea level. That is Tier 1 in Lake Mead. Okay, we got the Colorado River. My God, it looks like it's almost dry. So we just keep doing what we're doing. In 1963, we filled the reservoir in Lake Powell, 1963. And it looks like a glass of water that there's hardly anything in it. So we just keep building water parks and expanding all these fancy places that have huge swimming pools and homes that have 5 and 6 bathrooms. When is it ever going to end, and what are we going to do when it does go dry?
Thank you. Craig?
Let me address that question. Going back to what Vicki had said earlier, these private development coming into the valley, we review their water needs and the projects to make sure that we've got adequate support in our water portfolio to support these projects. Now, I think it's important to differentiate between the Colorado River and the Salt River project system. The Crystal Lagoons project is a Salt River project supplied system, and the Salt River system that we're allocated is like 55,000 acre feet, which is a lot of water, and this is only going to use less than 1% of our allocation. And we're only using, like Megan said, about 50% of our allocation, and we still got plenty of room for growth on the Salt River side. On the Colorado River side, side of the equation, we've got the state has sponsored over the last 3 years what they call a drought control plan, where they are managing the river and per the elevations that they see at Lake Mead and Lake Powell. All of the cities that have signed up, and all the states that have signed up as part of the 7 basin states that take Colorado River water, we've all signed up for how that water will be managed through a tier structure. So the tier 1, 2, 2A, and 2B, and 3. So we all are aware of how they're going to manage the system, and we all have plans in place to deal with shortages as they come down the line. As Megan mentioned earlier, we've been in a drought for 22 years. That is a serious thing, and it's not something to take lightly, but there is plenty of people out there that are doing the appropriate planning to control the use and management of that water. And we're no different from any other city. We take CIP water and we're managing it properly according to what we need to do to protect our citizens.
So we're just about out of time. In fact, we've kind of run over our allotted time period, but we obviously wanted to be here to answer the questions that you have. We want to thank everyone actually for their participation and for coming today. We haven't been able to have meetings where we've seen a whole lot of you recently, so it's nice to see you and have you here. We're going to be sticking around for a little while, some of us, and some of the staff members that I mentioned also that are here. And if you have individual questions that you'd like to ask, we'll hang around for a little bit. But we do thank you for coming. We appreciate your input. This is an ongoing process. If there's something else that you think of that you didn't ask today, again, the Facebook feed will be open to ask questions there. We have the dedicated email address and phone numbers on our website. So if you've got another question, something you think of after the meeting, go ahead and shoot us an email. We're happy to answer any of your questions that you do have. And thank you again for coming today.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you to all the panel members as well.